Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a video where I just get to gush all about the books that I read this past spring. I'm only going to talk about the books I read in March, April, and May that were 5 stars. So this is how I have decided to do my wrap-ups. I just need to talk positively about books. I'm just not a person who wants to kind of bash on a book. So any books I didn't like or that were like so-so, I'm not even going to talk about. I'm only going to talk about the ones I loved. So that's what we're doing in today's video. So let's just hop into all the books I want to talk about. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome or welcome back, all the things. And so we are going to be talking about my favorite books, my 5-star books from this past spring. And I have 7 books to talk about, which is actually a lot for me because I read a ton of books in May. I'm not sure what happened. I think I read like 8 books. That might be a record for me. Usually I'm like a 4-book reader, but I read 8 books, and so I had a lot to pick from. I have a lot of good ones. I have some nonfiction books because I've been running a book challenge on this channel in 2023, and it's been a fiction book and a nonfiction. So I have a couple really good nonfiction that have really just touched my heart or really spoken to me in this current season. And so let me just hop into a favorite. So I'm looking at my list. I do have a couple books that I got from the library. I've been using the library more, which I'm proud of myself for, but I picked up Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I mean, so many people love this book, right? But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it for multiple reasons. One, I am a scientist. I have my PhD in microbiology. I love science. And so I felt like this book had just the right amount of science, like enough to get the point across and even some extra on that. But it was still very enjoyable and it was still very approachable. And that is what I had heard about Andy Weir's writing style, and he definitely did not let me down in that way. And so this is about a man who wakes up on a space shuttle all by himself. And he wakes up next to the dead bodies of his 2 crew members. So he is all alone in space. So that's kind of the basic setup. So that's what you know. And in this book, I don't want to talk too much about it because it is really fun to go in without knowing kind of what's going on exactly. But yeah, you can know the fact that he wakes up all by himself and he does not really know what's going on. He has to piece back together his memory, and that starts kind of slowly. And so you're definitely getting 2 timelines where it talks about why he is on this spaceship, what is his mission. As he's trying to figure it out, he's remembering what happened on Earth and what his task is really. So that's all going on, and I really like the back and forth flashback kind of aspect to setting up the storyline. I enjoyed that. I was impressed by the fact that the story had like 1 main character there for a while, but yet it was still very interesting. I was very hooked into him figuring out who he was and what his purpose was and all of that, and like how he was going to do what he needed to do. So I really enjoyed that. So solid character work, solid setting. I really enjoyed the plot and where it went. And I even did enjoy the ending, which is contentious to some people. I feel like some people didn't like how it ended and they maybe wanted a little bit more. And I feel like I maybe felt that a little bit about the end, but I liked how it wrapped up. So anyway, Project Hail Mary, 5 stars. Okay, so here's another book that I know there are mixed reviews on, especially in the fantasy reader world. This is the only real fantasy I have on this list because I haven't been in a fantasy mood this past spring. I've been more in a thriller mood, which you'll see. But I did read the 2nd book in the Chorus of Dragons series, so The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons. I enjoyed it, you guys. I am such a character-driven reader. And so this series is really about a man named Kieran and a variety of other characters. And in this case, we really pull in a 2nd main character, Janelle, and she becomes kind of equal in importance to Kieran's story. But they're both telling the overarching story in this world where the good guys, Kieran, Janelle, are faced with this big plot line. And in the first couple books, you're really not totally aware of kind of the end goal or what they're fighting in the end. You're really getting to know their characters. You're getting to know kind of the role they're going to play, even though it is still very kind of mysterious as to exactly what that's going to be. But for instance, the first book is told in 2 timelines where Kieran is telling his kind of backstory of like when he was growing up in this city. He was found out to be the bastard son of one of the princes of one of the main houses, and he kind of gets brought into that world. But that's not the only place his story goes, because he's also being tracked, or he is a person of interest for some powerful people. And in this world, there's definitely magic, and you spend a lot of time trying to figure out exactly what that is and what are the tools that are involved, who are the players, who are the kind of the bigger people involved. And so I enjoyed that. And then like in that first book, he kind of tells the story of how he gets to the real climax of the story, where I think like the Capitol is burning or something to that notion. And he told how he got there. Okay, so then this book, what I think people did not like about it was the fact that it kind of retold that same story, but from a different character's point of view. I loved that. You guys, that is like, if you can think of any other books that do that or series that do that, I love that in books. Because what it feels like is you get little glimmers or little Easter eggs of the previous story you just read, but you get it from a different person's point of view and you get more information. So say you know something happened to Kieran in the first book, but now Janelle tells her story and you know that at that point in time, this was happening to Janelle when this was happening to Kieran. And it starts to make more sense. Like, I love puzzles in books. And that is why I love certain types of books. Like, for instance, I love the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which just drives some people nuts. But I like kind of the puzzling of putting the whole storyline together. And you really get that with this book. And this series is 5 books long. So I'm not sure where the next one is going, but I'm really interested in picking it back up because I definitely have a firmer handle on maybe the big bad of what's going to happen and what really happened at the very end of this book, that I cannot wait to pick up the next one. And so I feel like that was kind of a vague synopsis, but I really enjoy these books. I really do. And they're very large, and that's okay because I just like being in the world. So that was the next one I read. Oh yes, I read this book. I really liked this book. So this is The Once and Future Witches by Alex E. Harrow. I loved this. It gave me kind of like practical magic vibes, or even like the TV show Charmed. It reminded me a bit of that, but also it made me think of Where the Crawdads Sing. So kind of like the South and mugginess and swamps and things like that, just because of the main characters. And it probably did that more for me because I listened to the audiobook, because some of the main characters sounded very similar between those two books, between this one and Where the Crawdads Sing. So it kind of gave me those vibes, if that helps you make sense what this book is about. But synopsis wise, it is about these 3 sisters who grew up in a family of witches, but yet they don't practice witchcraft or anything like that, especially at the beginning. They're very estranged from each other. They had a hard childhood, but yet fate has kind of brought them back together in a central point in time in New Salem, Massachusetts in 1893. So during this time frame, it was like witches were very much hunted, they were feared, things like that. And so I liked this because it gave me kind of historical fantasy is really what genre I would put it in. So the basic idea is they're just fighting against kind of culture, as well as kind of this scary big bad guy that has fooled culture sort of idea. But really what made this book a 5-star book for me was the sister relationships. So it started estranged, but then they grew closer, and then they started to learn things that had happened to each other over the course of their lifetime. In their childhood, they kind of had some misconceptions that were not true. And so they're growing closer, but yet things are heating up in New Salem. And it's getting scarier, and they have to be brave, and they have to kind of embrace certain parts of themselves. And it was just so good. It was so good. And I loved the ending. I loved this book. I thought it was very good. So 5-star book for me for sure. And it was really the favorite historical book I read this spring as well. Okay, so now I told you I was really reading a lot of thrillers, which I still am in the mood to read thrillers. They read really fast, especially when I listen to them on audiobook. And so I read The It Girl by Ruth Ware. You guys, I loved this book. I was still kind of on the fence with Ruth Ware. I didn't know if I really liked her. I haven't tried too many of her books, but I didn't really like The Death of Mrs. Westaway. So I tried this book and I really liked it. So it's about this friend group. It's about this main character, Hannah, I believe her name was, and she gets accepted into Oxford, and she finds out that her roommate is named April, and April is very posh, and she comes from money, and she just has this way about her where people just are attracted to her, and she's just good at everything, right? She's not just rich, but she's also talented and smart and all these things. So she is the it girl. Okay, so Hannah is not. She's more just kind of normal, which is probably what I liked about this book, but I'll get back to that. Anyway, so they start this friend group and they have this life at Oxford and all these things happen. And then one night, April is found murdered and Hannah finds her. But yet this book is set up in two timelines, like present day and then the back in their college days. So it has very much dark academia flares to it, which I really liked. What I liked better than some dark academia is the characters. So like I said, Hannah, I felt Hannah was very relatable. I felt like she was just kind of like a normal woman. In her present timeline, she is pregnant, about to have a baby. She's trying to put all this past stuff behind her, but then some things start happening to reveal that maybe she was wrong about her testimony and who was then put away to prison because of what she said, that maybe she was wrong. And so she digs back into it, but yet she's very anxious and she wants to not do it, but she can't help herself, and things come to light. So that's really what the book is about. And the whole time I felt very hooked, like I wanted to know what was happening in both timelines. So that makes a difference to me. A lot of times there's one timeline I don't care about, but I liked both because I really liked Hannah's character. I liked how she grew. I liked feeling like I was walking alongside her in the present day as she was trying to figure out what happened and she was processing through potentially making a mistake. All of that. And it was just fast paced and it was just fun. I mean, I rarely give thrillers 5 stars. I usually only give thrillers 5 stars if I also connect to the main character and really are taken along on the ride. And I was for the It Girl. And so next I did finish one of my nonfiction books. And this has been on so many of my TBRs and I'm so glad I prioritized it. So I finally read The Beauty in the Breaking by Michelle Harper. You guys, this was such a good memoir. So that's what it is. It's a memoir book of this woman who is an African-American ER doctor in Philadelphia. And it starts off the book with the fact that she had just recently divorced her husband or something like that. They went to med school together and then they were planning this life. And then he decided he did not want to be married to her anymore, right around the same time that she was moving to start up a new residency or practice in Philadelphia. And it starts there and it tells the story, it tells her story of how she heals from that, but it interweaves her work. And I thought that was really good. I felt like you could tell that she's telling her story. Like she's not a professional writer, she's a professional emergency room doctor. And you could definitely tell that in her writing, but you could also just hear her heart behind her writing and her struggles and the things she had to work through personally as well as professionally, because she had to push against a couple things professionally. One, she was a woman. Two, she was an African-American woman. And in the medical field, I guess it is hard to kind of rise too high, even if you're very organized and very good, which it sounds like she is, whatever. And so it tells that story. What I feel like made it more of a 5-star for me, even though, like I said, it wasn't like the most amazing writing. You could tell she wasn't a professional. What made it a 5-star for me was just hearing how she approached different situations. So yes, there's some hard cases in here. Like she kind of goes case by case of different people that came in. Some of them were very hard, like you're talking infants and things that happened to them. So there's a little trigger warning there, but it is also a reality. And to read about how she handled it, what helped her, how she was able to really center herself and find the things that helped her. I don't know, it was just really encouraging. I feel like in this current season I'm going through a lot of health issues. Just to be able to read about someone working through hard things is really helpful. And you'll see that also in my second nonfiction book. So I feel like I have picked the nonfiction books that really have spoken to me in this current season. So it might land with you differently, but for me it landed as a 5-star. So I loved it. All right, to switch, I have 2 left. So this book though, I made a whole reading vlog about this book. This might be one of the last videos I have put up on this channel. It was kind of a spur of the moment reading vlog. I got my book of the month box and I just really wanted to read it. I wanted to read the new Taylor Adams book and I loved it, you guys. I feel like it was just so much fun. It was so fast paced. It was like twist after twist after twist. It was so much fun. So it was about this woman, I already forgot her name, named Emma. Emma is at this isolated house on some like aisle. She's removed back on this, at the end of some road. She only has like one other neighbor, and she is house sitting because she just really wants to be away from society. And you know that from the get-go. You hear about the fact that she just wants to isolate herself. She gets her groceries delivered. She reads a bunch of ebooks. She does not want to see people. Something happened. You don't know what, but something happened. But very quick on, like first chapter, prologue, she reads this ebook. She doesn't like it. She thinks it's crap. And she writes a 1-star review. I can't remember, on Amazon or Goodreads somewhere. And then the author comments back. And he comments some snarkiness. And he's just kind of like telling her that she doesn't understand what it's like to be an author, all of these things. And it kind of sets this kind of creepy feel, like this idea that you are not anonymous in your book reviews, which is just kind of lands with someone who loves to read books and rate books and all of that. So that landed with me, but that was very early on. And then it starts out, like there's very little buildup in this book, which I kind of liked. I liked just being thrown into Emma's situation, and it has like disturbing things happen where you really feel her isolation and you're just a bit freaked out, or at least I was just a bit freaked out by her situation. And so that was really fun. But then, like I said, it's like twist after twist after twist. When you think you understand what's going on, or you think maybe this person's involved, you either are right or not right, and the plot keeps going. And sometimes you feel like that would be overdone, but I liked it. I felt like the reveals happened at just the right time. I felt like the pacing was really good. I liked the character of Emma. Again, that was probably what made this a full 5, because I was thinking maybe 4 stars, 5 stars, but I liked the character of Emma. I didn't find her to be ridiculous. I didn't find her to be making terrible choices. I felt like it made sense what she was struggling with and how she was behaving. And yeah, so that's really where I landed with this one. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away too much. But I was impressed by the latest Taylor Adams. I mean, I loved No Exit. I thought it was a really fun book. I think I liked this one better. Oh, I don't know. It's so hard to tell. They're a little bit different, but they definitely feel like the same author wrote them. You feel a similar tenseness to the situation that I think Taylor Adams writes really well. So 5-star for that one. And then the last book. Okay, so this was another nonfiction book that I read. It's really good. So this is called This Too Shall Last by KJ Ramsey. It says Finding Grace When Suffering Lingers. And so my husband recommended this to me because he's had health problems over the past couple years. And like I've shared on this channel, I've been having health problems, and it's just a struggle sometimes. It's a mental and emotional struggle as well as a physical struggle. And so I liked this book. I felt like I resonated with parts of it, not all of it. This is about a woman, KJ Ramsey, who struggles with an autoimmune disorder, one that is very physical. Like it makes it very hard for her to move around. It makes it very hard for her to work and to enjoy her life. And it came on really suddenly after her college or during college. And she was recently married, things like that. So it just caused a lot of strain on who she was, her expectations for life, and her expectations of God, because it is a Christian inspirational book where it talks a lot about her situation and how it has pushed her towards God, but it also has had her wrestling with God about like the why is this happening? How is this the life that he has for me? Things like that. And so being able to just read her story was very encouraging for me, and to be able to see how she was able to struggle with different things and overcome different things, or just have kind of the daily battles, but also the daily encouragements, but to also realize that we're not in control, that there is so much about life that is outside of our control, but yet our culture and just their current time of living really makes you feel like you should be able to do it. You should be able to have hard things and then overcome them. And people almost expect that of you. Her point was like, people are very concerned, especially right away, but then they really want a champion story where you overcame something, and it's hard when you don't, when you're in the middle of it and you don't know if it's going to last forever. You don't know if it's going to get better, but you're in it, and it's hard to be in it chronically. And so I found a lot of encouragement from it. I found just like some peace. And so I really recommend it if you are struggling with anything that's more chronic, that doesn't seem to be getting better. It's a really good book. And so anyway, I recommend this one. But those ones, I guess there's 5. I have 5 of them here, but also the It Girl and Project Hail Mary were so good these past few months, and I am so happy. I've been reading a little bit more and enjoying reading. I just come and go. It really depends on life, health-wise, but mostly homeschool. Sometimes I'm just in the homeschool mom mode and I don't have as much time to read, but May was really fun. The whole spring was fun. So I hope you like this style of wrap-up video. And if so, let me know down below, because it is my plan to do this going forward as I put up content. I know I'm not always the most consistent on here. I come and go, but I just love this community. And let me know how you all are doing. Let me know some of your favorites from the past spring as well. All right, guys, take care. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next book video.